Welcome back, folks, to the random video blog where every single Friday I give my rambling thoughts in the wrestling world, share some stories, etc., etc. And this past Monday night, I was in attendance for Monday Night Raw, live from the TD Garden in Boston, my first ever time in the TD Garden. Had a great time, a good show, even a better experience being there live for the show. Definitely better than a lot of the more recent Raws, and Raw's kind of been in a slump since after SummerSlam. That's always kind of the case with the fall season. But a very good show on Monday night. Very excited to be there, and I will be in attendance for TLC in that same arena, the TD Garden in Boston. Already got my tickets, December 13th. The countdown begins. But that being said, though, on the way to that show, I was kind of thinking of all the great wrestling shows that I've been to over the course of the past 7 years since I started watching wrestling in 2008, April of that year to be exact. And it's funny too because I made my top 5. I thought that would be the theme of this week's video blog. And in making the top 5 greatest wrestling show, or the greatest wrestling shows I've ever been to, making that top 5 list, all 5 of these shows have happened within the last year. It was either 2014 or 2015, which really goes to show, for me anyway, how great these past 2 years have been. 2014, very good year. 2015 has been exponentially better. 2015, like I've said in past video blogs, will probably go down as my favorite year in wrestling as a fan so far, when all is said and done come December 31st. But in the meantime, though, I thought I would count down my top 5 favorite wrestling shows that I've ever attended, starting with number 5, an indie event, the only indie event on this list, Northeast Wrestling, November 14th, 2014. It was a Friday. I believe it was in Danbury, Connecticut. Very, very good show. Easily the best indie show that I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of great independent wrestling shows over the years. Now, I've talked about it before. I won't go into a whole story about it, but the first ever wrestling show I've ever attended was back in May of 2009, Northeast Wrestling. Now, for those familiar with the promotion up here in the Northeast area, they have their own talent. They have Matt Taven, who I started watching in that promotion before he was well known in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor. He started out in Northeast Wrestling. That's where I know him from. Brian Anthony, Ron Zombie, Bull Dread, all those guys I'm very familiar with. Robbie E. started out in Northeast Wrestling. Rob Echoes at that time, the Platinum Papa. Great promotion, but at the same time, they always bring in big names. Now, back in 09, when I went to my first ever wrestling show, indie event, whatever, they had Velvet Sky there, Ron Simmons, and Jerry Lawler. Now, the show that we will probably be going to, which might end up on this list in a couple weeks, I might have to update it at some point. We're going to another Northeast Wrestling event celebrating 20 years of the promotion in November next month. John and I, he's gone to almost every Northeast Wrestling show that I've been to. He's been along with the ride, for the ride with me. And we're going to a show next week, or next month rather. Like I said, at that show back in May of 09, they had Lawler, Ron Simmons, and Velvet Sky. Next month, they've got Bret Hart, the Hardy Boys, Bobby Lashley, the Boogeyman, Velvet Sky, going full circle. A few other, Rey Mysterio is going to be there. So a lot of huge names. This promotion has come a very long way. Back in August, when I went to another Northeast Wrestling event, they had Samoa Joe, Mick Foley, Matt Hardy, Rey Mysterio, Alberto Del Rio. A lot of those guys I was able to meet, which was great. That show would probably be 7 or 6 on this list. But this show that I went to in November of last year, we mapped it out like a month out. John and I did. We found out about the show in like September or October. And when we found out who was going to be at the show, AJ Styles, Booker T, who ended up getting replaced by Bully Ray, which was cool. Got to meet Bully Ray. Had already met Booker T before. Kurt Angle. When we saw AJ Styles and Kurt Angle on the same card, we're like, we're fucking there. So we got our tickets, and I'm going to school up in Mass. Now, usually when I go to wrestling shows, I go to shows that are within the area, within the same state that I live in. If I'm home in Connecticut, I go to shows in CT. If I'm here in Mass, I'll go to a show like at Raw in the TD Garden like I have been. But very rarely will I go out of state to go see a wrestling show. This was the one exception. I had to go home that weekend. It was my brother's birthday anyway, so I figured it was like, what the hell? He's turning 15. I might as well go home for his birthday, and it would work out well because I'm going home for the show on Friday. But the show was great. Like I said, got to meet AJ Styles, one of my biggest idols ever. I'll probably do a separate video blog on that in a couple more weeks. Got to meet AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, Velvet Sky after so long. Who else? I got to meet Tony Atlas, Evan Bourne, now known as Matt Seidel, however you pronounce it. Great show. Got to meet a lot of awesome dudes. And the in-ring action on that show was awesome too. A great main event of Matt Taven versus Matt Seidel versus AJ Styles. One of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen live. And I'll probably do a separate video blog on that at some point. Best wrestling matches I've ever seen live. Might go hand in hand with this video because a lot of the matches, a lot of the greatest matches I've ever seen were at these shows. But still, that was an amazing match. So a very fun time, and I look forward to going back to Northeast Wrestling in just a couple more weeks for that grand 20-year anniversary show. Coming in at number 4 on my list is TNA Impact Wrestling, the debut on Destination America, January 7th, 2015. Now, after so many years, going to a TNA show was on my bucket list for a very long time. They came to CT in January of 2012 for, I think, a house show, and I couldn't make it, and I was very disappointed because they wouldn't come back to the CT area for such a long time, and TNA very rarely tours anywhere near me, or at least they never used to, and they still don't, obviously. They rarely do house shows nowadays. But anyway, so I found out that they were going, they did the Manhattan Center in the summer of 2015, in June and August. Couldn't go to the June shows, but I bought tickets to the August show. Very good time. That was my first ever TNA show. When I found out they got re-signed by Destination America and they're going to be doing more shows, another set of tapings at the Manhattan Center in New York, I figured, what the hell, I'll be home anyway. It's a lot closer from Connecticut than it is in Boston. I will be there. Took the train into NYC that Wednesday to go see the show live. I mean, I say live because it was on tape delay, but it was the number 2 best wrestling show I've ever been to until these other ones came about. But that show was incredible. Now, I know I like to crap on TNA from time to time, especially nowadays with the product being so dead and the company being the state that it's in. But that show really reminded me how much I love TNA and why I love TNA for their roster, the moments they can provide. Such a great evening. You had the return of Awesome Kong, which I easily lost my voice over. I lost my voice for like the next couple days, but that was the moment that really did me in. Just seeing Awesome Kong come back and the reaction to her and not knowing anything about it was amazing. New X Division champion crowned in Austin Aries in a very good match with him and Low Ki. A great main event between Bobby Lashley and Bobby Roode for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. The debut of the Beatdown Clan. Never really cared for them, but it was a cool moment though. Got to see all my favorites live, so it was really, really cool. Loved that moment, or loved that entire show. And so it was a great night out in Manhattan. And New York is always such a great crowd too. And where we were sitting up in the balcony, there was not a bad seat in the Manhattan Center. It only fits a couple hundred people, but every seat is perfect. And for the amount of money that I paid to get those seats, which wasn't much at all, it was amazing. Got great view of the action. And to kick off the show, if you can recall, we didn't see the video package that opened that week's show, that opened that night's show. But what we did see was the crazy brawl that broke out. The wrestlers, every member of the roster was brawling everywhere. And they were right next to us. There was like Magnus and Low Ki and maybe a few others, Bobby Lashley right behind us. And Low Ki was literally standing right next to me. Like, it's all the pictures of all these events that I've been to are up on the website, nextwrestling.net. Cheap plug, just go to event photos. All the photos of every show that I'm talking about in this video are up there, including this one. Low Ki just standing right next to me. So funny. And that was really cool. But the best part, I think, about that evening, I mean, it was easily the worst, but it was also very funny, too, that on that night, I was not deathly sick, but I was very sick. I was coming off a cold. Like, that weekend, I couldn't do anything. Like, I was super sick that weekend. I kind of felt better by Sunday, and there was nothing stopping me from going to that show. And I brought my brother along for the ride, which I'll talk about more in a second. I've done a whole separate video on this event, so I won't go too much into detail. But I was sick with, not the flu, I don't know what the hell it was. I had a massive headache, my nose was running, I was coughing, I just couldn't speak. And of course, with it being like fucking 10 below in NYC that night, that obviously didn't help matters. But again, I was so sick, I had like a terrible case of the hiccups on the way home. I had the hiccups in the entire train ride home for like 2 hours. It was crazy. But then again, so much fun, loved it. Would not take it back for anything in the world. But like I said, I had my older brother with me that night, and he's not a wrestling fan, so I was going to bring somebody else. I was going to bring John, but he couldn't make it, so I brought my older brother instead. He is not a wrestling fan, but he had a great time. Like, he loved the show. He was talking about it for days, and that's how you know you can go to a great show. When someone that's not a fan, you bring them with you, and they enjoy it too, that's how you know it's a great wrestling show. So that is number 4. Number 3 on my list was my favorite wrestling, or was the best wrestling event that I've ever been to up until about a month or two ago, and you obviously know what 1 and 2 are, but I'll get into them in a second if you follow my social media. Number 3 on my list is Monday Night Raw, June 30th, 2014. Now, I've been to a lot of Raws in my days, a lot of live events, a lot of house shows. I went to one ECW SmackDown taping. That was my first ever WWE show. Did a video blog about that last November. And also in a very similar story, I was sick with like the swine flu that day, but I still went anyway because nothing was going to stop me from going to SmackDown. I'd already missed it a couple times before that. But anyway, yeah, this show, Monday Night Raw, June 30th. Again, I've been to a lot of great Raws. I went to one with John, my first ever live Raw on the final Raw of 2009, also in Hartford. Went to one in June, the day after my birthday in June of 2013. Good show. And then this one, another the best Raw that I've ever been to. And I went to one this past week, which was also very good. But this one takes the cake as the best Raw of not only that I've ever been to, but one of, if not the best Raw of 2014. And this Raw was the one where AJ Lee came back and returned and beat Paige for the Divas Championship. The same Raw where Miz came back, and being the huge Miz fan that I was like, oh man, this is so cool. And I was marking out just for the Miz. And then Jericho's music hits, something I never saw coming. I did not read the dirt sheets. It was amazing. My voice was gone for at least 4 or 5 days. And I was marking out a sustained pop for Y2J. It was fucking incredible. Easily the greatest moment that I've ever seen live. And that's taking into consideration over 30 wrestling shows that I've been to. Indie events, TNA, house shows, Raw, SmackDown, everything. And just greatest moment I've ever witnessed live. Jericho returning that night, and the place just came unglued. And just a great night, a very good main event. You had Roman Reigns and Triple H kind of teasing a one-on-one confrontation, a match I'm still waiting for. I just left that night and thinking like, wow, like I'm so happy to be a wrestling fan. I did one of those video blogs, why I love wrestling, or a reminder of why I'm a wrestling fan, whatever. And I did that right after that show because that show was just so great. I had people tweeting me like, oh, you're so lucky to be there. And I was so happy to be there. I mean, I had been counting down to that day all June, every day that month. I got the ticket to my birthday of June 2nd on the 2nd of that month. And every day I was putting up a video blog on my Facebook page, counting down to Raw on the 30th in Hartford. And then just the moment, the entire show was just magical. And would not take it back for anything else in the world. So, fantastic night. I don't know if any Raw is going to top that one, but very good night and just an amazing, perfect night at Monday Night Raw, June 30th, 2014. So, number 2 on my list, like I said, Monday Night Raw was number 1 until these two events came along back-to-back. SummerSlam 2015. Now, I said to John when I was sitting in his place watching SummerSlam 2014 on the WWE Network, when the announcement came on that SummerSlam was coming to the Northeast area, to the New Jersey, New York area, we looked at each other and we just said, we're going. We will be there. As soon as tickets went on sale, I tried really hard to get tickets. Took me a little bit, but I finally got them that same day back in March. And they were all the way up top in the Barclays Center. I'm like, I don't even give a fuck how high up they are, how much I paid for these tickets. They are so worth it. And it was just absolutely incredible, just so great. Just the countdown to SummerSlam for months and months and months. I talked about it here on YouTube. I talked about it and everything. WrestleRant Radio on Twitter and on Facebook. The countdown had been going on for almost a year. And the weekend finally arrived, and the Saturday was great, which I'll get to in just one second. You obviously know what number 1 has to be. But my first ever WWE pay-per-view, which a lot of people could not believe. Of all the years that I've been a wrestling fan for 7 years, over 7.5 years at this point, I had never been to a pay-per-view, mostly because we never get any pay-per-views in Connecticut. If there was one in Connecticut, I probably would have gone, but we never get them. And then all the pay-per-views that come to New York and whatever, I mean, I was too young and my parents weren't going to bring me, so there's no way I was ever going to go to a pay-per-view in Mass or in New York or wherever. But I was so happy to be able to go to that show, SummerSlam. Just a magical experience. Was it the greatest SummerSlam of all time? Absolutely not. But it was a great show, even better to be there live. And witnessing The Undertaker for the first time live in almost 6 years. He was at the first ever WWE event I attended in November of 2009, the SmackDown taping. Seeing Brock Lesnar live for the first time was amazing, too. A great main event between those two. Rollins and Cena, one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen live that same night. It was the 4-hour aspect kind of took away from it. It was a very, very long show, but it was such a great day. I was so tired yet so excited. There was no way that I was going to fall asleep at any point during that day until after it was over. And some people walked away from the event, oh, that was kind of disappointing, the finish sucked, and I was just so happy to be able to say that I was at SummerSlam 2015, and it made me even happier finding out a couple days ago, or last week or whatever, that SummerSlam will be held in the Barclays Center for the next 2 more years, 2016 and in 2017, so that's going to be great. I'm very much looking forward to attending both those shows, in addition to NXT and Raw, the night before and the night after. Speaking of which, the greatest wrestling show that I've ever been to took the cake after I didn't take much thinking at all. I mean, I got on the train after that show that night, and I'm thinking, this is the best wrestling show I've ever been to. And I don't know what's going to top this, but I would love to see something try. NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn the night before SummerSlam, August 22nd, 2015. Like I said, man, I had my wrestling bucket list. I had it made at the start of this year, and it had a couple things on it. To go to a Ring of Honor show, go to a show in Madison Square Garden, 2 things I'm hoping to do at some point in the very near future. Attend a WrestleMania, that's always been on there. Attend a WWE pay-per-view, and attend NXT. And I was able to knock off 2 things off that bucket list in the same weekend. Back-to-back, 2 nights in a row, scratch it off, knocking them off the list. NXT, man, NXT. And as I film this, it's Wednesday, the day of NXT TakeOver. And I'm putting this up on Friday, of course. But I just get chills just thinking of NXT because it reminds me why I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not one of those people like, oh, Raw sucks, SmackDown sucks, Impact sucks. I mean, they do kind of blow more often than not nowadays, but you know what I mean. I'll love it no matter what. Nothing will ever make me stop watching. I love Ring of Honor, TNA, WWE, Lucha, everything. I watch all the wrestling that I can, and all that I can take, all that I can handle from a day-to-day basis. NXT, however, is my favorite promotion. Lucha Underground is great. Talked about that a couple months ago, but NXT, from its early beginnings to where it's evolved to today, it's just incredible. And watching that 24 special that aired after Raw on Monday night was just almost brought me to tears. How many great moments were in that thing, from the parents being proud of Sasha and Bayley to Rollins crying in the front row to the tribute to Dusty Rhodes and everything about that. Kevin Owens saying that he thought he would never make it to WWE. Everything about that special reminded me why I love NXT so much. So going back to TakeOver, when tickets went on sale, I wasn't sure that I was going to be going just because I was already going to SummerSlam. I thought going to TakeOver would be pushing it. I didn't know who was going to be going with me. John wasn't going to be able to make it. RJ couldn't make it. So I'm thinking I ended up getting someone, Mike Yoder, great dude, known for a few years now. But I gave him a call. He said he was going a couple days before. We booked the trip. We were in. And I was so happy that I was able to make that trip because it was just an incredible evening. I mean, it was very ECW-like. And I'm not saying I've ever been to an ECW show. I can't now, of course. It's now they're out of business. But it has that Revolution-like feel to it, and with that being my first ever NXT show, that part of that, kind of played into the allure as well. But the matches that night, I mean, if you watch it back, I would love to see someone name a better TakeOver special than the one in Brooklyn. Great crowd. New York always has amazing crowds. Just from top to bottom, not a bad match in the card. 2 new champions crowned. Bayley winning. Oh my God, Bayley winning the NXT Women's Championship. Greatest match I've ever seen live. Favorite match of the year so far of 2015 in any wrestling promotion. No doubt, without a doubt, my favorite match of the year so far, and probably will be by year's end. But wow, I've been a Bayley fan forever. Seeing that moment, being there live for it was just amazing. Just the pure happiness that was coming off of people on that night, and is just elated to be able to experience it in person at the Barclays Center, which is also a great arena, by the way. That was my first time there for NXT. Just the match card from top to bottom. Apollo Crews' WWE debut, the Vaudevillains winning the NXT Championship, and just an amazing women's match, the greatest women's match in WWE history, in my opinion. Great ladder match in the main event. Very good match from Jushin Thunder Liger and Tyler Breeze. Perfect show from top to bottom. Just so happy to have been there. I mean, making the trip, to there and back, and the long train rides, all the walking, every bit of it, every single second of that weekend was so worth it. From SummerSlam to NXT TakeOver, but that show, NXT, man, NXT is just the greatest thing going in wrestling right now. It's just absolutely amazing. If you're not tuning in on a weekly basis, shame on you. And I'm pretty sure 95% of people are anyway now because it's so exposed on the network and they're giving it exposure on Raw. So, I mean, it's not really as the best kept secret as it was a couple years ago when no one could watch it. You had to watch the website, or you had to find Hulu links and shit like that to go to some fucking foreign websites to watch NXT. But just wow, and I'm so looking forward to being there next year for NXT, SummerSlam, and Raw. I'm doing all 3, calling it right now. I have to be there. I mean, the travel was crazy, but I'm going to try to see if I could, stay somewhere in New York to be able to go to all 3 shows. I'm not really sure, but I have to be there. The Raw after SummerSlam probably would have been on this list, too, if I went. But that was a great show, too. But that is number 1, NXT TakeOver in Brooklyn. If you ever have the chance to go to an NXT show, do it. Do not hesitate to buy tickets. And I can guarantee you, whether it's a live event, a special, taping, whatever, you will not regret it. It is some of the best wrestling, just the fan connection and just everything about it, the character development, the connection they have with the fans, the pure passion that you could see just bleeding off of these people, just coming out of their pores. From the fans, the passion is just indescribable. Just absolutely indescribable. It's that amazing. So, number 1 on my list, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Number 2, WWE SummerSlam 2015. Number 3, Monday Night Raw, June 30th, 2014 in Hartford, Connecticut. Number 4 was Teen Impact Wrestling in New York City, January 7th, 2015. And number 5, Northeast Wrestling, November 14th, 2014. Like I said earlier, the Northeast Wrestling show that I'll be going to next month, where I meet Bret Hart for the first time, Jeff Hardy. I've already met Matt a couple times, but he won't be TNA champion. He already vacated the belt. God fucking damn it. But anyway, it should be cool. It should be a great event. Bobby Lashley, the Boogeyman, Velvet Sky, all these other big names. Rey Mysterio is going to be there. A stacked card in I think it's in Danbury or Waterbury next month. And I'm hoping to go home to make that show on November 13th, on the 6-year anniversary of when I went to another great wrestling show where I met Mr. Kennedy and a few other people as well, where Bret Hart was also in attendance for that show. So just great stuff. Great stuff, guys. Go to wrestling shows. Like I said, I've been to over 32 in my 7 years as a wrestling fan. The funny thing is that 2015, I'm looking to break my record from last year of the most amount of wrestling shows attended. Last year, it was 10. Went to 10 shows. This year, I think so far I've been to 9. I've been to Impact in January, the debut on Destination America. Like I said, one of the greatest wrestling shows I've ever been to. That one, the live event on the final day of February here in, it was in Connecticut. I'm in Mass right now, but it was in Connecticut. That New England Championship Wrestling was in May, the Iron 8 Tournament Championship. Great show, another great indie event. That'd probably be on this list too if I had to extend it to 10 events. That one, Legends of Wrestling in early June, great show. Early August, Northeast Wrestling, so that's 5. 6, NXT TakeOver. 7, SummerSlam. 8 was Alchemy that I went to a couple weeks ago. Very fun little show. And 9 was Raw this past week. Already bought my tickets to TLC, so that ties it. And then 11 will be the Northeast Wrestling event I'll be hopefully going to next month. And I might even go to an MSG house show or something. So I've basically been, and it's funny too, because of the 9 shows that I've been to so far, there's no repeat. I went to a house show, a Raw, a pay-per-view, an NXT, a TNA show, Legends of Wrestling, Alchemania, New England Championship Wrestling, and Northeast Wrestling. All different promotions, all different type of shows, and any wrestling show that you go to, whether there's 100 people at it or 100,000 people, WrestleMania 32, you won't regret it. It's always a great time. So whether it's an indie event, Raw, SmackDown, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha, whatever, you will enjoy it. If you're a wrestling fan, if you are a true wrestling fan, you will love any wrestling show that you have the opportunity to go to. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to go and attend to all 5 of these shows, and I look forward to going to many more shows in the future. So that's going to do it for today's video blog. Always appreciate it, guys, for you guys watching these videos. I know we're in 20 minutes in here, so I apologize for the very long video this week. Although they're usually about 20 minutes long anyway on the average. But it's been a great week. NXT TakeOver tonight as I film this. It will be Friday by the time this goes up. But Raw on Monday that I was in attendance for. MSG last Saturday. Bound for Glory out last Sunday. A lot of great things going on in the wrestling world. And the countdown to TLC in December begins. But I would love to hear you guys' list of the greatest wrestling shows that you've been to. Have you been to a WrestleMania? Have you been to a pay-per-view, TNA show, Raw, Lucha, any of these shows, Ring of Honor? What is the greatest wrestling show that you've ever been to? I want to hear from you guys on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/graham.jason.matthews, and also right here on the YouTube channel, right below in the comment section right there. So be sure to leave your comment, your like, be sure to subscribe, and share this video. All support is greatly appreciated. Thanks once again, guys. Have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your Friday. I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.